Can I get a glass of water? I'm serious. I'm thirsty. Can I get a glass of water? This is not a prank. You never seen it?
No.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Oh,
it's amazing.
no.
He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this,
Problem
He's
is solved?
bullshitting the world. Watch this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Barack Obama didn't just leave the White House, he left behind a mythology. For years, he's been floating above the political chaos like a Zen master in designer suits, worshipped more for his playlists and Netflix deals than his policies. He's become the kind of former president who's treated like a vibe, not a man, someone who delivers TED Talk wisdom while the country unravels beneath the surface. But the illusion is cracking. The same people who once applauded his cool detachment are now asking real questions. Where was the substance behind the style? Critics like Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly have stopped pulling punches.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say that.
Speaking of Barack Obama, he decided to drop a post on X today, and I thought, okay, maybe in the wake of the Pete Hegseth presser, he's going to say something like, no matter how you feel about the Iranian strike, hats off to our, boys in blue, our guys in the bombers. He went a different way. This is what it was.
Curious how you're thinking about this eulogy specifically in the moment and all the tensions that you just brought out.
I didn't even want to talk. I was so mad. Part of the reason I think I ended up having anything to say.
They're dragging Obama's polished image into the daylight, where the contradictions can't hide behind clever speeches and cinematic drone shots. And their message is clear: you don't get to walk away from the mess you helped create just because you did it with charisma. The cultural reverence once reserved for Obama is starting to sour, replaced by skepticism and side eyes. He's no longer the untouchable icon. He's the man behind a legacy built on feelings, not follow-through. And in today's media landscape, that's a dangerous foundation to stand on.
Do you remember when they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, this? And then they go, it kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up and stopped.
We'll be remiss if we do not do at least one clip from the Barack Michelle Obama appearance, the podcast, because everybody thinks they're getting a divorce, and let's face it, they probably are. She dragged him onto her show with brother Craig.
Obama didn't build a political legacy, he built a lifestyle brand. From the tan suit to the summer Spotify drops, he became the master of presidential optics. People didn't just listen to him, they felt him. Every speech landed like a perfectly scored movie trailer, with just enough hope and elegance to distract from what was actually happening behind the scenes. He spoke of transparency while his administration quietly expanded surveillance powers. He promised progress while journalists fought for access.
We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto-penned.
But it didn't matter, because he looked and sounded like the future. That was the trick. The image was so smooth, so media-ready, that it became untouchable. People fell in love with how he made them feel, not what he delivered. And now, years later, that emotional high is wearing off. What's left is the uncomfortable realization that we all bought into a story, polished by PR more than performance. Rogan and Kelly aren't just challenging Obama's politics, they're challenging the entire vibe economy that propped him up. The idea that if you say the right words in the right tone, you don't have to get your hands dirty. But the country's dirtier than ever, and the aesthetic can't clean it up.
Their children.
And in fact, a lot of what they campaigned on, they don't practice at all. Great example is the Obama administration. The Hope and Change website had to be changed because there was a bunch of stuff in there about whistleblowers.
No, I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. I called for a thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws.
Protecting whistleblowers, which they didn't do at all. There was one of the worst administrations for whistleblowers. Give me some volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a third term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan didn't need a teleprompter to call out the double standard. With that casual, side-eyed delivery he's mastered, Rogan took aim at the fantasy of Obama's transparency. This was the guy, he reminded listeners, who ran on hope and honesty, only to preside over some of the most secretive surveillance expansions in modern history. Rogan wasn't angry, he was amused. That's what made it sting more. He laughed at the absurdity of a man celebrated for openness while his administration dodged press scrutiny and tiptoed around civil liberties. Obama didn't just leave office, he slipped out the back door while the spotlight was still warm, and the public, entranced by his polished demeanor, let him do it. Rogan laid it out. You can't spend 8 years preaching change, then curate your Wikipedia page like you're writing your own sainthood. And yet that's exactly what Obama did. His legacy wasn't just shaped by historians, it was sculpted by his own team, down to the last filter on his official portrait. Rogan's takedown wasn't a rant, it was a smirk with facts attached. The message? The emperor wore a tan suit, and no one dared say he had no clothes.
People like, maybe it's the old sperm, maybe it's not the vaccine that's causing the autism.
Yeah,
you know, why don't you look at that?
They'll never let that secret out.
Good luck with that one.
That may be the key behind all the defunding everything.
What? What is this? This is just some grievance fest again with two of the most privileged women on earth who are really bitter against men.
While Barack was busy crafting his presidential mixtape, Michelle carved out her own empire of influence, one perfectly airbrushed Instagram post at a time. Megyn Kelly didn't hold back. She took the scalpel to Michelle's carefully curated image, slicing through the soft focus speeches and syrupy podcast soundbites. Michelle positioned herself as America's wise auntie, doling out life lessons with a side of green smoothies, but staying far from any real political heat. And that's the trick. She made inspirational her entire brand. Empowerment without policy, uplift without risk. Kelly called it for what it was, safe messaging wrapped in designer dresses. While communities struggled, Michelle launched initiatives with cute acronyms and took selfies with school kids. But she never stepped into the real trenches, not when it counted. She stayed above the fray, playing motivational speaker while the political ground crumbled. It's easy to look noble when you never have to get messy. Michelle didn't rebuild anything. She narrated the downfall like it was a TED Talk. Kelly's point landed hard. Decency speeches mean nothing when the house is burning and you're just filming from the balcony. The image of grace doesn't replace the grit that real leadership demands. At some point, the Obamas stopped being political figures and started acting like cultural royalty. They traded in the Oval Office for multi-million-dollar media deals, book launches with stadium tours, and slick documentaries with sweeping drone shots. It was less about governing and more about maintaining an image, an empire built not on results, but on relatability. Barack became the narrator of nostalgia, while Michelle turned into a feel-good guru, all while real problems festered in the background. Rogan and Kelly didn't attack them for being successful. They went after the hypocrisy. How do you preach sacrifice while cashing Netflix checks and posing for Vogue? How do you sell hope from the comfort of a yacht while the communities you once promised to help remain untouched? The Obamas didn't just leave politics. They rebranded themselves as America's most marketable couple. Every podcast appearance, every memoir chapter felt like another step in a choreographed dance to stay beloved without ever being held accountable. It's not leadership, it's legacy laundering. And now that the glamour is fading, people are wondering, was any of it real, or was it just the most expensive PR campaign in modern history? While the spotlight followed the Obamas to late-night interviews and streaming platforms, their party quietly collapsed behind them. State legislatures flipped, local leadership vanished, entire regions that once leaned blue turned red, not with rage, but with neglect. The Democratic bench thinned out under Obama's watch, as rising stars were sidelined in favor of narrative control. It's a quiet failure, the kind that doesn't make headlines, but shapes everything. Rogan and Kelly pulled no punches. Barack had the charisma to fill stadiums, but didn't build a bench that could hold the ground. He gave soaring speeches about unity, while the grassroots withered. Michelle talked about hope, while the inner cities they vowed to transform struggled without support. It wasn't sabotage, it was absence, a void filled by louder, angrier voices on both sides. The chaos of today didn't come out of nowhere. It grew in the silence left behind when the Obama era ended, and nothing meaningful took its place. The people who felt seen for the first time in 2008, they're now wondering if they were just part of a political photo shoot. The curtain is falling, not with scandal, but with disillusionment. That might be even worse. For years, the media handled the Obamas like sacred artifacts, too iconic to challenge, too polished to pick apart. But something's shifted. The reverence is wearing thin, and even longtime supporters are beginning to raise their eyebrows. The glossy magazine covers, the carefully timed interviews, the family portraits that look like campaign posters for a political fairy tale. It's all starting to feel performative. And the internet isn't buying it like it used to. The once bulletproof aura is developing fractures, and Rogan and Kelly were just the ones bold enough to say it out loud. The mood has changed. People aren't interested in nostalgia tours when rent's due and trust in institutions is crumbling. The Obama glow used to dazzle, but now it's more like glare, blinding, overexposed, and impossible to ignore. As alternative voices gain traction, the echo chamber isn't echoing back the same praise anymore. It's bouncing back doubts, critiques, and uncomfortable truths. It's not that the Obamas failed loudly. It's that they quietly became part of the very system they once vowed to disrupt. The myth isn't just fading, it's being replaced. And the audience isn't clapping the same way they used to. The myth of the Obamas wasn't destroyed by scandal, it was deflated by clarity. Rogan didn't scream it down. Megyn didn't sensationalize it. They just held up a mirror, and the reflection told the story. It wasn't rage, it was recognition. That the legacy we were sold isn't the one we're living in. Barack, once the embodiment of modern progress, now looks more like a museum exhibit of political branding at its peak. Michelle, once hailed as a revolutionary first lady, now feels more like an influencer who never got political dirt under her nails. The nostalgia tour is still running, but the crowd's thinning out. There's only so many times you can repackage hope before people ask where the results went. That's what makes this moment so pivotal, not just for the Obamas, but for the culture that built them up. The era of pass after pass because someone speaks well and looks good on camera, that's ending. Rogan and Kelly didn't cancel a legacy, they exposed its limits. The sheen has dulled, the applause has quieted, and what's left behind is the uncomfortable truth. The era of the untouchables is over, and the spotlight never lies.